Okay, so I'm going to do a very basic overview of LibChat. It is going to go pretty long because the thing with LibChat is it's difficult for me to separate it into separate parts, but hopefully it shouldn't be too long so you can watch through it if you need to get the training. So, from the LibAnswers dashboard, there's a couple of ways to get onto LibChat. The first one is this little sign in button here. And the second one is by going to this LibChat and then clicking connect. I'm actually going to change some settings straight away, just because I'm on a training one and I don't want to have any messages coming through if other people go offline. So, this is the dashboard of LibChat. Up in the top left hand corner, we have the status. Online means that you are online and ready to answer questions from anyone. So you can get questions from people internally, but you can also get questions from the public on the public side of LibChat. The next option that we have is internal. So what this one does is it means you can get questions from anyone who's logged into LibChat, but you're not going to get ones from the general public. This could be really useful if it's at the end of the day, 5 minutes before LibChat's about to close. You want to finish off the chats that you currently have, but you don't want to get any more chats in. People will only be able to send in any chats if at least one person is online from your department. If there's no one online, it won't let them send in chats and it will direct them to LibAnswers instead. And then finally we have offline. It's best practice to go offline before you close down the window. It's not the end of the world if you do forget to go offline. It just can help things out a little bit if you do remember to do that. Okay. The next option is this set away. This is for if you just need to step away from the keyboard for a minute. You can see a little icon changes down here to let people know that you're not the keyboard, so they're not going to send any messages over to you. If you're set online, or if anyone's set online, you will see this little green person in a circle down here. If you're set to internal, that circle will still be green but will be solid, and then offline will change them all to red. I'm actually going to skip over this part of the screen for a second. I will come to that once we get a chat sent in. So we have the departments here. You'll probably only see 1 or 2 departments depending on what department you're in. What you could do with these departments is you could send a message just to that department. So if, for example, you were within core, you could click on here and you could send it to anyone else who's online from core. If you needed any clarification on any questions or something like that, you could do it through here. If you need to send a message to everyone who's online, this is something you should only do very sparingly. But if you do need to do it, there is this All Coventry University staff there, which will talk to everyone who's currently online. You can talk to individuals by clicking on their name. I'm not going to bother Lindsay while she's working, but if I wanted to, I could. Sorry, Lindsay. There's also the option to click on your name. This will bring up this little kind of personal chat. You could take notes, play around with some of the features. Oh, here we go. I freaked out a little bit. Play around with some of the features, or just take general notes. You can see I have some very important notes going on up here. Okay. So now I'm going to close that down. I'm going to send in a chat. This is one that is specifically just for the training LibChat. So it doesn't look quite like what students will see. This is just the one I've got for training, but I'll explain the difference to you. So they don't necessarily need to send in a name, so I'm actually going to send this in anonymously because I know that I'm the only one monitoring this department. but usually they would have to put their first message in as well. Unfortunately, this one isn't asking for it, but I will show you what it looks like. So this has now come through, and as we can see in this tab up here, it's telling us we have a new chat. So there's a couple of options. You can either view all of the chats. This is all of them, even if they have been answered by someone else. You could see new ones, which are going to show you any chats that have yet to be claimed. Or you can show this mine, which shows any chats that you yourself has claimed. So if I go to the new, I can come into here. It's going to give us a little bit of information here. So like the referring URL, what department it's come through to. And you can get this up by clicking anywhere which isn't the claim chat. And then in order to claim it, there's this claim this chat at the bottom, or this one here. I'm going to claim that. You can see that it's popped over from this new tab into the mine tab. And it will show up in here. So once you're on a chat, you've got some very basic formatting options. So you can say this is in italics, for example, which can be really useful if you are doing referencing help. The next one along is this insert link. Now this allows you to do what we call inline links. So if we were to just copy and paste this, now this is a fairly long locate link. If we were to just copy and paste it, you can see the whole link there. It doesn't look very good. It's not very good for accessibility purposes. Also, this is a fairly short link. It's quite long, but it's not as long as it could be. So sometimes it's easier to do what's called an inline link. Now the way we do that is we type what we want the link to say. So I'm going to put this is a link to locate. And then I'm going to just highlight this locate. Click this little insert link here. And put that as my link URL. It does say that it has to start with HTTP. If you copy it from this URL bar, it will do. If not, it's just that HTTPS://. Most of them will already have it in, but if it's not working, that might be why. I'm going to send this message, and this is a hyperlink, so if you click on it, it will bring up that page on locate. I'm just going to close that down a moment. The next one along is emojis. It's not the most useful thing, but if you did want to send emojis, your option is there. This is my favourite emoji, if I can find him again. There we go, this little cowboy. And the next one is this send a file. What this is if you have any kind of PDF or a Word document, it has to be fairly small, it has to be under 20 meg. But if you have anything that explains it, so for example we have a couple on how to print, then you can send it through here. Underneath we have these canned messages. Now I'm going to have a lot more than you do because I have access to all of them. And what this is it's just general things that you type a lot, you can add it in. So how to top up printer credits, I can click there and it will give an option on how to top up printer credits. You've also got your personal ones at the top, and I'll have another video on how to add those personal canned messages as well. Okay. And the next one along, you have this request contact info from patrons. So if something has come through as this, they haven't given their email, they haven't given their name, you can request that contact info. If I come through to where the chat is, I can go in here and I can enter an email and I can submit it. And this is going to save that email onto our system. Up at the top, we have this internal note here. This is if you want to write a quick internal note. It will be visible to anyone who can view the transcript. If you want to add anything in, anything that might not be in here, that is something that you can do. If you're ever trying to do something and you realise that it's not working, one of the reasons is probably because you are still in this internal note mode. I do it all the time, and it is most likely the explanation. But at least it's a quick fix. So I'm going to come up to this patron information. Now maybe you got the name of the patron through the conversation. You could come in and you could change this in here, and you can update. You also might have people who enter their email address with a typo. You can go in and you can correct it. So I'm going to change that to a Y and change this to a C. Now you're going to see when I click update here, it's going to bring in a load of options down here. Now what this is this is going to take you through to previous LibChats in the system, and any previous tickets that they've sent in on LibAnswers. This is all connected to the email address, so as you can see when I filled that email address in, it updated. It also only goes back for the last 3 months. This is for GDPR reasons. We can only actually keep them for 3 months before we have to get rid of any identifying information. But it can be really useful in those 3 months to see what they've been asking. Another thing that might be useful is this referring URL. It's not going to be as much use here because I've come in from a specific LibGuide. But if you click on it, you can actually go and see what LibGuide they've come in on. If they've come through from Locate, you can see what page they were on. So sometimes if they are on a book record and they came into it, then you can go in and see it through that. And then the next tab, the third and final tab, is this FAQs. This can be used as a reference for yourself. So if you wanted to triple check the answer for something, you can find it through here. You could also use it to copy information from FAQs. So if I go to this, are there any vending machines in the building? I can copy this answer here and paste it into the box here. I can also click this copy URL and it will give them a link through to the FAQ. Or if I know this FAQ is what I want to send, this little link here, and I don't need to open it up. At the top here, the first one is to create a ticket from the chat. So if something is going to take longer than roughly 5 minutes, or if it's a query that you know isn't going to be able to be dealt with through LibChat, or if it's someone specialised that needs to answer and they're not online at the time, you could create a follow-up ticket that goes through to LibChat. You could select what queue it's assigned to, so whether it's a specific department, a specific campus, or whether it's EST, which is Electronic Services Team. That is the 3 of us down in the basement. If there's any technical faults and you need to let us know, you could transfer it through to that. It is highly recommended that you have a patron email in this. It just makes it a lot easier when we're responding to things. Otherwise, sometimes you'll get people who send it through without an email and there's no way of responding. If you go through with just assign it to the queue, it comes up as a brand new ticket for people to pick up when they're next on LibAnswers. Or you could assign it to a specific person, in which case they will get an email through and they'll be able to pick it up from there. You can also add a little internal note, so just if you wanted to make any comments on it before it goes through, you would do it through this. This next button is to ban an IP address. This is a button that we never use. The reason being, if someone is accessing from campus and you ban the IP address, no one on campus will be able to access it. This goes for all of the different campuses and also any student accommodation buildings, things like that. If you ban one IP address, it will ban anyone from that building from entering. If you do get any issues with people abusing the system, it's not something that we've ever had to struggle with before, but if you do, let us know in EST, let Kirsty know, and we will try and sort it out as soon as possible. There is a confirm here, just so you don't do it accidentally. If you do ever do it accidentally for any reason, just let us know and we'll be able to unban that IP address. The next one along is this add to analytics. I'm just going to show you that it's something that we don't use, just in case you're curious as to what it is. We don't use it, we don't use that option. Next along is this add tags. Now if I click on here, if you remember to add tags to LibChat, into each LibChat, basically talking about what specific thing this chat was talking about, it can really help us in things like marketing. So if we are getting a lot of questions about a certain thing, we realise that maybe we have to make the information about that more prominent. Or if at a certain time of year we're getting a lot of information about a specific thing, we can maybe run a campaign to push that information out around that type of year. It's not the end of the world if you forget, but it can be super useful if you remember. So if you can try and remember as much as you can, that's absolutely fantastic. The next one along is to email chat transcript. This is if the user specifically asks for a copy of the transcript. It's not very common, but it can happen. And if they do, this is how you do it. Again, make sure you've got their email address all correct, and then you can send it through to them. It won't show any of these system messages or anything like that. It will just be an exact copy of what they see here. We'll close this down. The next one along is to transfer the chat to another department/user. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult for me to do because there aren't many people online, but I'll show you as much as I can. If we click on that, you can transfer it through to any online department. So currently I'm online with Lanchester Library and Training. If I wanted to transfer it to another department, that is how I would do it. Could also transfer it through to a specific member of staff. Now as you can see, it does now tell you how many active chats they are on. That's how many people they're currently talking to. And it also lets you open an internal chat with them just with this button here. If you ever click off a chat, by the way, just click up here again and it will bring you back in. I'm not going to transfer it because again I don't want to bother Lindsay. But if you just click their name, it will transfer it through to them. They will see that option as a new chat. Once they claim it, they can come in, and as soon as they've joined the chat, you can then leave and it was all transferred over to them. And then finally, the end chat button. It's pretty self-explanatory to end the chat. Now the final few options, we have this tickets tab here. We haven't got any tickets through at the moment, but if we get any new tickets through on LibAnswers, they will show up here as long as they're a queue that you are monitoring. Now we've always said that first and foremost to focus on LibChat, because that's obviously a faster paced system, that one does get priority. But if it's really quiet and you feel comfortable going in and answering tickets, you can go into LibAnswers and answer the tickets as well. The next one is the settings. Now you're going to have a lot fewer settings than I do, but I'll talk you through how each of these work. Now you may only have two settings here, one with your name and one with the specific department that you are in. You can choose whether or not to monitor each separate department. So if you go offline on a certain department, you won't get any more chats that have come through to that department. If you've only got your name and one other department, it's exactly the same as going to internal. I'm just showing you that's what that option is. And then down here we have these queues. These are all the queues that you monitor on LibAnswers. If you don't want to see those tickets coming in, you can go to Don't Notify, and then that will stop you getting notifications when those tickets come through. And then finally at the bottom, you've got the option to turn sound on and off. I usually have mine off when I'm doing training. You've also got this desktop notifications option. Now this will show, just like in an email, it will show at the bottom right hand corner of your screen when you get a notification through. Each different browser will have a slightly different way of doing it, but if you turn this on, it will teach you how to go through it. It will show you through. It is recommended with Chrome and Firefox, and each one will talk you through how to do it. So if you click allow, then up here, it's got to allow coventryuniversity.ac.uk to send notifications, and you want to allow. It's pretty much the same with Chrome. And then finally, we have this option here for view chats in multi-chat overlay. Now what this does is it turns it into a slightly different layout for LibChat. So if I come back into our chats, you can see that this chat is now in a smaller box. Has exactly the same options, the tabs at the top, the icons for all of the actions at the top, but it's just in this smaller box that you can move around. It means that you can have a number of chats open at any particular time and switch between the two of them a lot easier. If you were wondering what this message was here, this is exactly what it is. Okay, and that is the new LibChat dashboard. For whether or not you want this multi-chat overlay, it's completely a matter of opinion. Some people love it, some people don't like it. It's just down to personal preference.